We good to go, or?
Yeah.
Okay. I appreciate everybody being here, and certainly appreciate all your coverage during the season. I know it wasn't the easiest of years with COVID and stuff, but appreciate making it work with us, and we're looking forward to hopefully having a season next year with none of that around, but one never knows at this point. I do, before we get into questions and stuff, did make a decision today to not renew the contract of Andrew Allen, our goalie coach, so he will not be coming back as our goalie coach at this point. So just want to make you aware of that. Other than that, I think Dave and I are ready for questions.
What was behind the decision not to renew Andrew Allen?
I think just basically how the season had gone. I thought we struggled early, and we just couldn't kind of get out of it. So we figured we'd look in a different direction for next season.
How does the sort of direction that you guys are looking, and this is for both of you, that you're looking to take, like what are you sort of looking for in a goalie coach? Like, not being funny, but I think the average person doesn't know like what all goes into a goalie coach. What do they do? How much of it is technical, mental, day-to-day, big picture? Like, what does that look like?
Kind of all the above. It's a unique position. It's tough. Some of it is dealing, sort of with the mental aspect and the confidence and getting guys to feel good. Other things is the ability to pick up little things that maybe, the goaltender is doing or not doing that could be affecting his overall play or position. So you're looking at that aspect as well. Knowing, when to push them, when to, go and look for rest for them. I mean, there's a lot of things that factor into that. It's like I said, it's a unique position, and it's a challenge to find a guy that works well and makes everything sort of smooth with your goaltenders, because it's such a critical, position for your lineup.
I don't know if I can really add a whole lot to that. I mean, Ron spoke to the intricate details of it on a day-to-day basis. There's an awful lot that goes into it, and we had Andrew, as a great part of the staff in terms of who he is as a person, his work ethic. As we look towards the future, that's one thing in terms of being a good fit with our staff, but most importantly, being able to communicate and affect the two guys that are in goal for us on a day-to-day basis.
And so, when as an organization you're going through a decision like this, like who are the stakeholders that are involved in that conversation? I mean, is it kind of you two and the rest of the front office? Is that something you talk about with Chris and Philip to maybe get their input, or is it just kind of you've observed and maybe kind of be able to acquiesce things, or how does it all sort of operate?
Well, it starts with me. I mean, obviously it's ultimately my decision, but I do have discussions with Dave about that and kind of what I'm seeing or what I'm thinking and want to do moving forward. And we have those discussions. And at the end of the day, we felt this was the best decision for the organization at this point.
Dave, we talked to a number of players. All of them have said that the comfort level that they've been able to build between each other and with the system will make it much easier next year. What kind of base do you have to make, I guess, or how confident are you in the base that you have that you can make significant strides in the offseason and training camp?
We took a step in the last 2 months of the season in terms of what our team play looked like, in terms of how cohesive we were from a night-to-night basis, and that was evident from my standpoint. There were times during the year early on that we had stretches where we played very well. We had good consistent stretches. We also had stretches where there's a lot of inconsistency to our game, and that cohesiveness takes time to build, and that's one of the real positives coming out of the season, is that we saw a stretch of 20 to 25 games at the end of the year where that team play was there, and it was there on a very consistent basis, which is where you have to start. And then, for us, as I look back and go through this season in detail, we're going to look at all the areas, that we can improve and push to a new level. But that foundation is one that we were able to take a step towards, and that's a real important piece.
David, a question back to goaltending. How does this team, especially in the last few weeks of the season, see its value in the two goalies and grouping injuries?
Well, there's so much spotlight that is put on your goaltenders. And rightly so. They're an extremely important part of each and every game and your ability to have success. And as we got through this stretch here, the consistency of our team, whether the goaltending mirrored that to a certain degree or vice versa, the two are very intertwined. So, down the stretch, we saw some better performances. We saw, a little bit more consistency in the performances in goal out of both guys. I certainly think, Chris, as he came out of that stretch, especially in the first half of the year, where he was on again, off again with injuries, found a little bit of his stride here down the stretch, and you saw more of who he is as a goaltender. And those are all positives, again, that hopefully can be built on and be motivating as both guys go through the off season and get ready for training camp next year.
Dave, kind of staying with that, think about the underlying metrics for what you all did defensively in terms of shots allowed, scoring chances allowed, high danger chances allowed. I mean, you're among the better units in the league. So to be able to get that goaltending consistency, like, how much do you think that would have changed this season? And not only that, but like, how much stronger do you think it would have made this team as a whole?
Well, I'd go back to, more importantly, how do we connect the two this coming year? Because they don't live in separate worlds. They're connected. The underlying defensive numbers show that our guys work real hard at it. Did a good job, and we're pretty consistent in our play without the puck. In a lot of respects, that leads to how efficient your puck play is getting out of the zone as well. But those numbers have to be connected, and it's not all individual to the goaltending position, which is separate from everything. The two are connected, so that's a big piece of this. As we go through the summer, we look at everything and evaluate things. Yes, individually performances need to improve, but also team play along with those individual performances have to be connected and have to make sense together. And coming out of this year, those are two things that, when you look at it, are disconnected.
There's quite a few expiring contracts, RFAs, UFAs. How different do you expect the roster to look to start next season?
Well, I mean, I think you look at what we did at the trade deadline. We moved 6 bodies out. We acquired some draft capital, so that gives us the opportunity to look at different things, whether it's moving picks for potentially players in trades that maybe teams are up against the cap that can't sign. It allows us maybe to parlay those picks, move up further higher in the draft, and maybe based on where we finish, we're going to pick 1 through 5. We might be able to get a guy in the draft that can step in and play in our lineup next year. So we look at that. We look at the guys that are UFAs and RFAs, and the RFAs with ARB rights versus non-ARB rights. The coaches will go away for a couple of weeks. I'll do some other stuff. We have pro meetings next week, and then we'll get together and we'll all kind of talk about where we are and what we like and what holes we need to fill in. But I think with our movement at the deadline and the cap space, we do have the ability to acquire, whether it's via trade, via free agency. So we'll certainly be looking at those areas for sure to try and boost our lineup. So like the core of what we had. I mean, I think we did a lot of good things right to the end. Guys never quit. They kept working hard. And so you're trying to establish that culture as a new franchise. I think that's important. So we feel we've got those key pieces, and now it's a matter of kind of tweaking it a little bit and adding the right pieces around it.
Has anything changed your thoughts on what the identity of the team should be, or the pieces that you would go and acquire based on how things played out in the division or the conference?
No, I mean, I think we stepped into the season. We thought when we drafted guys, we were trying to get good players, but also get character individuals. Guys that we knew would come and work hard each and every night, try to establish that culture of a team that's not easy to play against. I know our record wasn't as good as we wanted it to be, but I think our guys competed hard. There were certainly nights we couldn't get the goal we needed. We didn't get the save we needed. We made the mistake that, hurt us. But overall, I think you look at our record, there was 16, I think, 1-goal games and 10 more that were 1-goal games became 2 with empty net goals. That's 26, basically 1-goal game losses. So, we think we've got some good pieces. We've got to add to it and make some tweaks, but we think if we can do that, you look at some of the teams we beat this year too. It wasn't like we beat some pretty good teams. So we think we're there. We hopefully can add the right pieces over the summer that give us a little bit more of an edge and continue to improve, next year.
You mentioned those 26 1- and 2-goal games. Is there any one area of the team where you feel that you absolutely need to improve this summer in order to try to change that dynamic?
Well, I think it's a combination of other things. I mean, if we can add more scoring, obviously it's tougher to score goals. I mean, some nights I look at games, we outshot teams 37-16 and we lost the hockey game. We couldn't get the goal we needed at the time. We had chances, we just couldn't do it. So goal scorers are not easy to find, but if we can add something in the free agency market, guys that can come in and play in our top 6, top 9, that's certainly something we'll look for. You're always looking to add and improve on your back end as well. So, and I think as Dave said, we got better as the season went along. You go back to the start of the season, I'm not making any excuses, but this is 41 years in the game for me. This was the hardest year I've ever been involved in, to deal with some of the things we had to deal with, opening a new rink, building that pandemic, starting with the 6 games on the road in exhibition, COVID, guys in and out of the lineup, all that kind of stuff. You got a bunch of guys learning each other. You got a bunch of guys learning a new system, and I think that showed early. We struggled with that. We weren't able to do the team bonding events we wanted, get the guys to know each other. But as the season went along and everybody started getting more comfortable with each other and getting comfortable with the system, I thought our play improved down the stretch. Even you look at our goaltending, I think it was 31st or 32nd leading up to the deadline, and it was 14th from the deadline to the end of the year. So a lot of things moving in the right direction, and hopefully by adding the right pieces, we can sort of get over that hump.
Dave, with those familiar players or players that core and people know each other, how's that going to change how you approach the season and take these guys?
Well, it starts from day one. Yeah, well, training camp will look a little bit different. Maybe not from the outside, but from the inside, it'll look a little bit different. Instead of, starting from scratch with detail in every area, we can be a little bit more refined and really honestly, have our concentration more on the competitive pieces of camp and the competitive details of camp that go into your everyday life in winning games. So it allows us to be a little bit different right from there. The basics of our systems, which, we'll spend some time here over the next couple of weeks and, go through with a fine-tooth comb everything we're doing in every area of our systems. I can sit here and tell you that I'm very comfortable with the majority of areas and the things that we're doing. We're going to look to build on what we did defensively and without the puck. We do a pretty good job getting out of our own end. We have to find ways to not just to score more goals, but to continually take the offensive zone time that we produce, which is pretty significant, and turn that into a little bit more offense. We have to spend some time on our specialty teams and improve those areas. So, having familiar guys back allow us to bring back, more detail with having the foundation and not just having a ground zero starting point.
Dave, what are the last 10 games with Matty Beniers telling you to sit on this team long term?
For me, it's you can look at all the little pieces and break it down. For me, it's the poise with which he handles every situation. On the ice, he's very cerebral and understanding the game. He has good defensive DNA. He supports plays and he supports his defenseman as a centerman very well coming out of the zone. And then he has instincts going up ice offensively. But most impressive to me is just how he handles and how he has handled over the last 23, 24 days, the different stresses and pressures that might be coming to him, whether it's off the ice or on the ice. He's handled those things very well. And for me, is a very impressive young man. And that is a real important place to start. He had a nice start here. There's many challenges to come for him, but I believe he's ready to handle those.
Ron, kind of staying along with prospects. You said Riker Evans, he's going to be in the AHL next year. What's sort of the plan with a guy like Ryan Winterton and then Billy O'Devine? Is the plan for him to still stay in Finland for one more year and then try to bring him to North America, or what is the conversation there?
Yeah, so Riker will have every opportunity to make our team when he comes to camp this September. If he makes it, great. If he doesn't, then he'll start off in Coachella Valley. Ryan has another year of junior, so he'll probably be there. And then Otavainen probably another year in Finland before he moves over, most likely. But, I think it's been a positive sign to just sort of see the progress that those guys have made. Like, Riker Evans, one of the top point producers and defensemen in the Western Hockey League. Ryan Winterton, you saw him in training camp. He had the shoulder injury, didn't get to play until January. From January to the end of the season, been really a good player for for Hamilton, and they've got a chance. I don't want to jinx them, but they have a chance to go all the way to the Memorial Cup, and that'd be a great experience for him. That hopefully bodes well for him with opportunities with Hockey Canada at the, possibly the World Juniors and stuff moving forward. So his development is moving well. Billy was in the U20s for Finland, may have a chance to go back there in August. I don't know what team they're going to bring, but has an opportunity for that. Played on a very young team in the men's league there, but handled himself extremely well. So that's positive. And you look at Jacob Melanson, I think he's at 25, 26 goals this year in the Quebec League. Different type of player, more of an energy, physical kind of guy, but he's having a good year. And then, our Russian goaltender, we'll have to see how that plays out, obviously with the world situation. And Justin Janik, he had maybe not a great start in the first half of the year at Notre Dame, but finished much stronger and into the playoffs, so tracking in that direction as well. So kudos to our scouting staff. That wasn't easy to do in a COVID environment, but they've got some good players, and they continue to work hard. And with 12 picks this year and 13 next year, there's a lot of good pieces we can bring into the organization.
Well, with Brian, I know again he's going to come back, but is it one of those things where you would look at maybe trying to sign him to an ELC and do all that, or is that kind of later down the road? And also, what's been your thoughts on his progress since coming back from the shoulder?
Yeah, I'm not sure we would look to sign him this summer. That might be something a little bit down the road, but his progress has been outstanding. I've watched a lot of junior games on film where I'm scouting other guys that are in this year's draft, and a lot of times to watch him against Hamilton, and he keeps popping up on my screen as making a good defensive play or good offensive play. So for me, when I see that, I like that. I think he's certainly a prospect that has a possibility to play for us, which is exciting.
Ron, when you look at the team, the roster, and the assets you have this summer, do you look at this as a one-year build or rebuild or two? Do you have a plan like that? Or I know you want to be aggressive, but are you looking at next year as a
Well, I think every year you want to make the playoffs, and that's your goal. I think our goal is to get better each and every year. I thought from the start of the year to the end of the year we got better. We hope we continue that next year. It's not an easy league, but we certainly want to add the pieces we think will give us a chance to contend for the playoffs next year for sure.
What would, in your mind, be a successful season next year?
Making the playoffs. I mean, that's our goal every year is to make the playoffs. So that's exactly what we'd like to do.
How do you evaluate the play of the guys that came in the trade deadline, or at the trade deadline after Daniel Sprong and Victor Rask, obviously both their contracts are expiring. Do you think they'll, I don't know if you can talk about that, do you think they'll be back next season?
That's something we'll have discussions with. We'll talk with our pro staff on what's available and stuff over the next week, and then the management team will sit down with Dave and his staff and go through our roster and lineups and what we may or may not be able to do moving forward, and those will all factor into the final decisions. But certainly, Victor, I had in Carolina, smart player, good guy, low maintenance, did a good job for us. Daniel, he scored some goals. You saw he's got some speed and some scoring, which was exciting. And then, even Pouliot, I think ended up +6 in the games he played. So he stepped in and did a good job. So all three guys, stepped in and played well for us in the last 19 games.
And kind of on that topic, Trinity Court's waiver exemption runs out now. So he's putting thought into plans to try to either keep him in the organization or what happens with the goalies and stuff.
Yeah, no, he had a great year down below, and he's gonna have every opportunity to come in here and push for a spot in training camp, and that's, I'm sure, what he wants to do, and we'll have to see how that plays out. If he makes it, then it forces us to do something else. If he doesn't, then we run the risk of losing him potentially on waivers. But you take that risk with a lot of players coming out of camp most years.
Philip Phillips is going to go play in the Worlds at Helsinki. Are there any other players going?
Say that again.
Sorry, Philip Phillips is going to go play at the World Championships in Helsinki. Are there any other players going?
I believe Larson's going to go. Potentially that maybe Kuhlman goes. Drieger is going potentially. So yeah, there's a few guys that the potential will be there for sure. I'll be there. I won't be playing, but I'll be there.
Maybe.
Dave, from almost day one, one constant of this team has been how hard they work and the resiliency, and they never felt out of a game. What was the key to that with a bunch of new guys? Was that just the character of these guys that you guys brought in here, or is it? What I think you see teams where that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's the biggest part of it. What's within each and every guy, and then, it's one thing to start out that way, and we had some tough stretches. I think back to a stretch towards the the beginning of November. Another one through the Christmas holidays. That month-long stretch. We had some tough stretches where as a group it might have been easier to go the other way rather than to stick with it. And that's one of the the real the things we can take pride in, the resiliency that this team showed continually day in and day out, and continued down through the last 20 games of the season. And that comes from within each one of those guys. And I believe as we get to the second half of the year and down the stretch, that now starts to speak to the constitution of the group, and that's a foundation that we want to have.
Dave, guys, when we talk about Gio and his influence he played for the first few months when it comes to leadership, whenever it's time to name a new captain, what are you looking for, and how long do you think is a healthy amount of time to assess that process and that next move?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, we haven't discussed that in depth in terms of the timing of that, but in speaking with Gio, it's interesting the impact that we believe he had on our organization while he was here, and I believe there'll be a lasting impact that he has on a lot of the players that had a chance to spend several months with him in a competitive situation. Obviously going through year-end meetings, and I've had discussions with more than one player about the impact of a player and a person like Gio. So he gave everything he had while he was here, and his impact is an important one on our organization.
Dave, separate from the actual letter wearers themselves, who maybe has impressed you or stood out from a leadership perspective in the room?
It's always a collective equation when you come to your leadership group, and normally, I mean, the guys that have letters are at the front of the pack. So rather than go and talk about other guys, at risk of leaving guys out, one of the guys that I really thought stepped forward as we came down the stretch was Adam Larson. As we went through difficult stretches through the year, he's a rock. He shows up, he does his job, he works, but I believe he grew even a little bit more as we came down the stretch here, in terms of what he brought to the rest of the group in terms of energy, and a confidence. And so those are some of the little things that you look for in the different guys in and around the room. And I'm not afraid to talk about Lars. He's a guy with a letter on, and we all know he's part of our leadership group. Those are some of the important things that we saw, and he's for sure one of the guys that was right there.
Ron, is the expectation that Tanev and Schwartz will be both back full go for you by the time training camp rolls around?
That is they should be both ready to go when camp starts.
What do you get back when you get Brandon back on the ice? We potentially saw just a little bit of him early in the year.
I think we term, to me, he's kind of what I call an engine, right? He's a guy that brings that energy each and every shift, each and every night. And, he's an engine for your team with that kind of work, sort of pace that he has. I think he was having a great year. He's probably scoring more than maybe we expected him to do early in the season. It was just kind of a freak weird thing where, no fault of his own, the guy basically falls on him from behind and it ends the season. So I can tell you he's been working extremely hard. I see him in the gym. He went back yesterday to continue working. He's hopefully start skating here in the next couple of months and should be full bore for camp.
You were talking about offense earlier. What are your thoughts on score moving forward, and what do you think he has some of the challenges scoring this year, or you don't get out of next year?
Yeah, I know. Just finished my exit meeting with Donnie too. It's interesting. I mean, he scored 17, I think, last year in Colorado. So we're certainly hoping for more goal scoring for him than we got. In some of his thoughts, he puts the blame, a fair amount of the blame on himself, and he changed his training summer last year a little bit, and things didn't go as well as he had hoped at the start of the season. For me, I just tried to talk to him about. It seemed at some point he stopped shooting the puck, right? Like if you're not shooting the puck, you're not going to score. If you're going to score goals, you have to get to the front of the net. And if you go back and look at what he did in Colorado, he got a lot of his goals by getting to the front of the net, deflections, rebounds, that kind of stuff. So I think he knows what he has to do. And, we've had those discussions. I'm sure Dave had discussion with him too at the end of the season and at their meeting. And but we certainly think he's capable bringing more, and I think he feels the same way, and hopefully a good summer of training, get him back to that next season.
In terms of your offensive needs, is this a good free agent class in terms of you see pieces out there that you can help you?
There's names out there. I don't know. I mean, every year it kind of changes. What you look at a year from now, and then what ends up getting there on free agent day can change. We've seen a lot of guys already get signed. I can't mention players' names because they're employed by other teams, and that's considered tampering. So, but we do feel there are players out there that hopefully get to free agent day that could fit within our organization, and hopefully that's the case that we can sign some of those guys.
When you're looking to add offense, are you looking mostly at the forward group, or might you also look to find like a scoring, puck-moving defenseman maybe to add to your group?
In both, for sure. Yeah, I mean, we had Gio and Dunner running the power plays, and then when we moved Gio, I left Dunner, and then we used Seuss in that role. So, whether we find that guy that can step and do that, whether Riker Evans steps up and does that in camp, some things remain to be seen. But certainly, if we can add a piece on the back end that has some more offensive ability to it, we're gonna look to do that. And then, as I said up front, some piece that can play in the top 6 and produce offense, and maybe another piece in the top 9, and look at sort of the makeup of our bottom 6 as well.
Along those lines, going back to defense, I mean, how much of a priority is finding a right-handed shot defenseman? Or you kind of go, you have a Larson and Morgan and say, like, we feel good and we go for the guys to play offhand, or what is the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if you can find the perfect right shot guy, it makes it easier to go righty lefty. We've used Alexiak on the offside, we've used Susie on the offside, we used Fleury on the offside. We've had a lot of guys on that offside, and they've been fine. I think, in fairness to our guys, it was probably more of a challenge. I kept 8D out of the gate. We knew we potentially may have to do something with Mark at the deadline, and so we didn't want to leave ourselves short. It's not ideal for getting everybody into the lineup and getting comfortable with a partner and getting comfortable on your right side. We seemed to be a little bit more comfortable after the deadline when we got down to the 6 and we sort of had pairs and units and positions, and it seemed to work a little better. So, I mean, the intent would be to start the season with 7, not 8 next year, and carry the extra forward up front if we could.
You've got an American League roster to be thinking about as well.
Yes, we do.
For that process this summer.
Yeah, no, we've got to hire, a head coach, assistant coaches, head trainer, assistant trainer, head equipment guy, assistant equipment guy, strength coach, goalie coach, video coach. Fill out a roster. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to be done, and it's going to be a bit of a challenge. I mean, we're going to, the rink will probably officially not open for games till in December. The practice facility we think will be ready November 1st. So, we may start most likely out of Seattle. The first month and a half be based out of here, play some games here in Seattle for the people here to see, and then eventually move down there into our new building, which is going to be fantastic. It's 10,000 seat arena, practice facility attached. It's going to be outstanding once it gets up and running. So certainly some challenges, the logistics, getting players in here, getting them accommodations, getting them down there accommodations, filling out that roster. A lot of work to do over the next few months. So I'm hoping by maybe August I can get some time off.
So that said, with the team, if they were to play here in Seattle, was it one of those they would be a climate pledge, or would you try to put them somewhere else, or where would they be playing games and practices and all that?
We're still talking about that, but hopefully Climate Pledge would be the place that we could get some games in there.
One more. Yeah, you guys did exit interviews this week. Was there a general theme or message that you were giving to all the players?
You want to go first or me?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was truly on an individual basis. There are some underlying themes that we want to take advantage of over the summer, and that we want to have the right mindset for coming back in training camp. But the majority of at this time of year, 2 days after the end of the regular season, a couple key points for each individual that will likely lead to further conversations over the summer.
And for me, it covers a broad range. I mean, the last few years we're putting this thing together, so part of it is making sure that the players feel that our facilities are top notch, that our food is top notch, that our travel is top notch, that they're being treated the way we feel that hopefully feel they're being treated. Feedback and all that was tremendous. You kind of look at the big picture as to how the organization's going. Incredible feedback from the players and our fan base. I had one veteran player, I don't want to say because it'll upset his former team's fan base, but he said best fans he's ever played in front of. They're vocal, they bring energy every night. They're appreciated the effort. You look at our last night, I think 80% of the fans stayed, after the game for the ceremony and awards and stuff, which was fantastic. And so they're appreciative of that. And then I get into some of the stuff that Dave does too. And there's certain guys that, that have to understand that this is a pretty big summer for them. And they need to put the time in the gym and on the ice to give themselves a chance to make the lineup on a regular basis next year, or they're going to be in trouble. And you have those sort of candid conversations. But overall, things were very good in the discussions.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate that.